All right, let's get started with some 4/4 swing. The way that I like to think about 4/4 swing is mostly being driven by the ride cymbal. I consider the ride cymbal to be kind of like the engine that propels the swing. So the way that I like to think about it is spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang. I know some other people have like chug-a-lug or whatever, but I like spang-a-lang. That's just what I like. All right? So when I'm playing slow swing, I'm generally trying to think about a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Hey, Russell, let's do that together. 1, 2, 3. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. It's helping me subdivide. It's helping me keep the time and still maintain that forward motion. When I'm playing up-tempo swing, I like to subdivide using half notes or thinking in 2. It helps me not rush, and it also helps it feel natural. So like 1, 2, 1, 2, spang, spang-a-lang, 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 spang-a-lang. That's what I'm trying to get to. Cool, sweet. Let's talk about the brushes. Now, the brushes are really important because they help us achieve different sounds, and they can also assist in playing at a softer volume. We're going to talk about playing a ballad right now, and usually for a ballad, I'll use a slow stroke with lots of sweeps. And usually my stroke looks kind of like this, kind of like windshield wipers. So now I'll add bass drum and hi-hat on 2 and 4. There you got it. Brushes at a ballad. Playing the brushes at a medium tempo. Now, there's lots of different strokes that we can use, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to use one stroke. Check this out. Lots and lots of sweeps. Now, I want to maintain that spang-a-lang, so I'm going to start with my right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have the quarter notes. Now we need our skip note. And there you have it. You have that ride pattern of Spang-a-lang on the snare drum now. There you go. Up-tempo brushes. So for the first time in this video, we're going to talk about a brush pattern that's not just all sweeps. With this right hand, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm really trying to utilize the entire drum here. Now with my left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can go counterclockwise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you put them together, it kind of sounds like this. As you can see, when we put it all together, you're getting that Spang-a-lang from the ride cymbal, but again, down here on the snare drum. 12/8 Afro Cuban. It's actually one of my favorite grooves to play. A lot of people are thrown when we start talking about compound time signatures, but all 12/8 really means is a swung 4. So if we're thinking 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a, we're dealing with 12/8. So when I start this groove, it's basically I'm thinking of it in two parts, the hands and the feet. Now in my hand, I'm gonna have an African bell pattern. And it's a little bit tricky, but once you've got it, I think you've got it for life. Check this out. Awesome. Great job, guys. These guys have got it. So we're going to start with our feet. We're just going to have bass drum on 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Now with our hi-hat, we're going to put our hi-hat on 2 and 4 like we've been doing the whole day. You guys have got this. Y'all feel that? So now in my head, I'm thinking 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So I'm going to take that rhythm. Can you guys keep clapping that for me? Thank you. I'm going to take that rhythm, and I'm going to put it first on the ride cymbal. Oh, yeah. Now I'm going to take it. I'm going to put it on the bell. Now I'm going to take it, I'm going to switch to the booty of the stick, we call this the butt of the stick, and I'm going to put it right here on the floor tom. And once we have this foundation, we can add our left hand. And our left hand can imitate other sounds from other kinds of drums. Or we can just play on the rims. We can do all kinds of different things. And once we really absorb that bell pattern, we can even change it around and find other accents and add other notes or take away some things, leave some space. And that's how we're going to make it just a little bit more creative and make it groove just a little bit harder. And there you have it. Afro Cuban 12/8. Now let's deal with some funk music. Now this next group I'm about to teach you, it's the kind of groove that you would hear sometime in the late 60s, and it's been frequently sampled up to music made yesterday probably. And it goes like this. Now the important part about this groove is making sure that we think of it as a 2-bar phrase. So, here's the second phrase. Making sure that we're thinking of it in 2 distinct parts and phrasing it like it's just one idea. The first half of the first bar starts with 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and you can see that both limbs hit on the downbeat. 1 with the bass drum, 2 on the snare drum. Now, in the next end of the phrase, we're going to hit both the bass drum and the snare drum on the offbeat. And. So we're going to put that together now. 1, 2, and. So on the second part of the phrase, it's going to be 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to connect both of those phrases together. And 2, 3, and 4. And there you go. You have a funk groove from the late 60s. So this next groove we're about to play is another funk groove from the late 60s, and it's a groove that's been sampled time and time again. And it's a pretty difficult groove to learn, but once you've got it and once you have that in your arsenal, you're going to use it over and over and over again on gigs, on recordings. So it's really, really helpful and useful to understand this groove. Now, the most important part of this groove is getting the accents together and learning kind of like where the accent in each limb is supposed to be placed. So for example, like the bass drum is, the snare, the hi-hat, so the trick is getting all those limbs to sit together and to land together and to feel good and natural. Hey, can we try something? How about just drums and bass? Now we want to deal with some 4 on the floor, just straight up pocket. Now this is a groove that's super universal, and you're going to use it almost every time you sit down at the drum kit, no matter the style, no matter what kind of gig you're playing. And the key to playing this groove is making sure that it's always groove and making sure that it always has that forward motion. It's boom, cat, boom, cat, boom, cat, boom, cat. I like to listen to a lot of music from the late 70s, the early 80s, because it helps me kind of like figure out where everything should be placed. And we call that playing in the pocket. So now we're gonna play a neo-soul / hip-hop groove, and this is present in a lot of modern jazz. So we play this groove quite often on gigs. And it's very similar to that pocket groove that we were playing earlier, which is... But now we're gonna take it and we're gonna kind of lean things back just a little bit, and it could happen in any limb. Let's check this out. 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1. It's a really cool groove and it makes people dance, so I'm all about it. So now we're going to deal with the Bossa Nova. Now, this is a duple groove, meaning that it's felt in 2 instead of being subdivided into triplets or 3 like swing is. The foundation of this groove is going to come from the bass drum, which is our heartbeat. Hey, maybe we can play it together, Russell. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Doon 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 doon. Just like a heart. You want to make sure that's nice and consistent because, you know, if your heart starts going all over the place, that's not good. You need to call 911. So we want to make sure that it's moving and it's feeling good. Now, we're going to have 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. And then in the ride cymbal, we're going to have 8th notes. And then in the left hand, we can have any kind of bell pattern. I've heard people say a bossa starts on 1, so we can have... Or we can play... Either of those are going to get you through the gig. I promise you won't be fired for it. So the samba rhythm, again, is a duple rhythm. It's based in 2 and not 3. It's a little bit faster than a bossa nova. Hey, Russell, can we play that heartbeat rhythm? 1, 2, Da-doon, doon, doon, da-doon, 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 da-doon. In the ride cymbal, I'm going to take the swing pattern, Spang-a-lang, and I'm just going to straighten it out. So instead of, I'm going to have just shredding that a little bit. And in my snare drum, I'm going to have any kind of Brazilian bell pattern. So it can start on 1, it can start, wherever you want it to start, as long as it feels danceable. A lot of the times when we're playing these Afro Cuban grooves or when we're playing these Brazilian grooves, we have to remember that they weren't really meant for the drum kit. So each of our limbs has to act as an individual percussionist playing an instrument. So my right hand might be the shaker, and my bass drum might be some sort of other kind of drum. We have to make sure that we're always thinking like multiple percussionists, but then bringing it together to be one voice. The mambo. Now, the best part of the mambo is that dance element. We want to make sure that we have that dance element. And here we introduce the clave. Hey, y'all, let's do a clave together. The clave is our key. It's what helps us unlock that danceability. So, in my left hand, I'm going to introduce something called the cascara, and it goes like this. Right? Now, in my right foot, in my bass drum, I want my bass drum to play what the bass is playing. So now we're going to play some mambo together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. So now when I add everything together, I'm going to add the clave and the cascara and that rhythm with the bass. We're going to get something like this. So now we're going to take the elements of mambo and we're going to combine them with the elements of swing. And it was really popular to do that in the late 60s and the early 70s. And a lot of drummers were taking these Cuban and Brazilian rhythms and they started swinging them. And when we do that, you get something kind of like this. So much like we can take a mambo and swing it and make it feel different, we can do the same thing with the Bossa Nova. We're going to take our bossa, we're going to slightly swing it, and there you have a Boogaloo. Now it's time for one of my favorite grooves, the organ groove. Now, I'm from the Midwest, so I grew up playing these grooves all the time. And it's really simple. It's just our swing groove, our Spang-a-lang, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat, 4 on the 4 on the bass drum, except this time, we're going to have this happening in our left hand. You know, my dad used to say, Cocoa Puff, Cocoa Puff. And they used to help me remember it. All right, let's play some organ groove. Another one of my favorite grooves, the shuffle. Now, this groove always makes people dance. It always makes people get up and want to shake their booties. But today we're not talking about kind of like the pop shuffle that we all know. We're talking about the swing shuffle. So what's going to be happening, we got 4 on the floor again, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. And in our hands, they're going to mirror each other, meaning they're going to do the same exact thing. So they're going to go a 1, a 2, a 3. A 4, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1, a 2. I'm going to make sure that those accents are nice and strong and that those unaccented notes are nice and low. So check this out. Now, if we need to, we can play just our normal Spang-a-lang in our right hand and keep that shuffle in our left hand, or we can just play what we call a half shuffle. So check this out. Or any of those will work, and I promise you that it will get people up and moving. And now for another groove that is based in duple and not triple, meaning that we're subdividing in 2 and not 3. This kind of groove was popularized from European music in the 1970s, 1980s, and you hear it on a lot of great records. And it sounds a little like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what makes this groove unique is going to be the 4 on the rim. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And also the fact that we're taking Spang-a-lang and we're flipping it. So instead of it being spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, it's going to be spang-a-lang, 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 spang-a-lang. And that's how you get that effect. The New Orleans Dirge. Now, this kind of groove, it comes from New Orleans, and this type of groove was played a lot for processionals at funerals when people would march in the streets and they would, follow the coffins. And so it's based off of people playing marching drums. So again, kind of like when we were talking about mambo and we have different percussionists playing each instrument, it's the same type of situation. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to imitate that. We're going to have 4 on the floor in the bass drum, 2 and 4 in the hi-hat, and then we have our snare drummers, and it's based off of press rolls. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have the New Orleans Dirge. And now for something a little happier. When we talk about the processional, we're talking about the beginning of the funeral. Now, after the funeral, we have this parade beat. And it focuses a lot on what we call the big 4. So in the bass drum, and maybe, Russell, you can help me illustrate this. In the bass drum, we have this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, we don't have to play that every time because we're improvising. This is improvisational music. But we want to make sure that we're catching that big 4 quite frequently. Now, in the hi-hat, we can have 2 and 4. We can have all kinds of splashes. Remember, this is different percussionists, different people playing these grooves. Now, on the snare drum, again, it can be press roll oriented. It can be based off of single strokes. We want to make sure that it's very rudimental no matter what we're playing. And it's also, it has an element of swing to it as well. So I like to think of it like this rhythm. So now, here's a New Orleans street beat. So as you just heard, I was playing a lot of singles. But you remember when we were playing the dirge, I was playing a lot of press rolls. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take those singles and we're going to turn them into press rolls. So let's try that. Okay, and now for one more variation on this New Orleans street beat style, one where we incorporate the cymbal. So I'm going to take that basic rhythm again, that and I'm going to mirror in my right hand the cymbal with the hi-hat. They're both going to be playing 2 and 4. the Jazz Waltz. It's one of my favorite grooves to play. And it's very similar to playing in 4/4 swing, except instead of playing in 4, we're playing in 3. So in the right cymbal, we're going to have spang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang. Now in the hi-hat, we can either do beat 2 or beat 2 and 3. So either of those work just fine. And in our bass drum, we're just going to have either just beat 1 or we can feather all 3 beats. Now, here's some Jazz Waltz. And now for swinging in 5/4. A lot of drummers started dealing with this type of groove in the late 1950s, early 1960s, and it goes a little bit like this. With our right cymbal, what we want to think about is spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, spang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With our hi-hat, we can go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Either of those will get you the gig. Keep 4 on the floor, or just put 1 every downbeat. And now we're going to address how to play in 7/4. When I first started dealing with odd time signatures, this one really threw me. It was really difficult to remember where 1 is. And then my friend, actually I think it may have been Chad, he taught me how to start feeling 7/4 by using a clave. You know, a clave or a key. And it's 2 half notes followed by 2 dotted quarter notes. And it goes a little bit something like this. Can you guys help me out? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So we can take that clave and we can incorporate it around the kit. So maybe something like this. 1, 2. Now, once we become familiar with playing in 7, and once we feel comfortable feeling that 7, then we can divide it up and we can feel it in different ways and we can break it into other types of groupings. So maybe something like this. I'm just going to break it up. I'm going to just kind of play around with it, and you guys see if you can count with me. Here we go. 1, 2, oh. All different ways to break up the 7 and make it feel like a groove instead of making it feel like a weird kind of clave metronomic type thing.